Welcome to
That's High Praise,
a Nicolas Cage podcast.
I am your co-host, V.H.Zest.
And I am your other co-host, Captain Nostalgia.
All right, yeah. So this week we watched a movie Josh here has been dreading for a little bit. It's a 2014, I believe?
2014.
Yeah, 2014 kind of medieval flick called Outcast, starring Hayden Christensen.
Yeah, I feel like this barely qualifies as a Nicolas Cage movie.
Oh, come on.
This is like Grand Isle. When we first started this, we're going to do a Nicolas Cage podcast. Back when I was still trying to find the voice of that one. It was Grand Isle, and it was also starring Kelsey Grammer. Kelsey Grammer was barely in it. So that's what it kind of felt like this one was for Nicolas Cage. But before we get into this film, we have an announcement.
We do.
So if you guys heard the episode of Akira for Victims and Villains, you guys know that we are launching a brand new podcast in November called Animind, an anime podcast, and Matthew Basil, who was the third co-host of this podcast, is leaving to go pursue that and full-time. And so moving forward from this episode on, That's High Praise will be exclusively Micah and myself.
Woo!
Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah,
I loved podcasting with Matt, and I still do. But there's just something about podcasting and the way that we do it, where we watch the movie and then you get to literally be eye to eye with the person that you're podcasting with.
Yeah, dude, so satisfying. Yeah, and then Matt also has got an audio drama that he wrote, and I assume will be directing. Do you have a part in that?
I don't.
I do, and I'm very excited about it.
I'm going to be producing it.
Oh, okay.
So
cool.
And that will be live on Twitch the first Saturday in November this year.
Is it not the 5th, actually?
I don't remember the exact day.
Oh, then it's not. Because if it was the 5th, you'd remember.
Sure. Never. Yeah. So Outcast.
Yeah, Outcast.
I don't honestly know how long this episode is going to be.
I'm glad you said that. I really am. Because this movie is much better than we thought it would be. But there's just not a lot of substance to it.
Yeah, so general thoughts coming out of Outcast is it is a Hayden Christensen movie through and through for this first hour. And then you get into this weird Nicolas Cage scene. And then the movie completely changes for the better.
Yes, that's true.
And spoilers, this is your official spoiler warning. Nicolas Cage dies.
Yeah.
And the movie sucks again.
Okay, the movie doesn't last that much longer after he dies. And it's a good death. It's okay. Anyway.
So satisfying.
Yeah, it really is.
But so let's get into this, man. I don't know where you want to start with this. I got a couple of trivia facts.
Yeah, of course.
That made me feel a little bit... All right, so I'm just going to say this. I have tried on several occasions. I just do not enjoy the performances Hayden Christensen gives.
Yeah, that's the first thing I have to say, too, is... well, if I can be honest, I've never seen him outside of Star Wars. So this was actually my first go at non-Anakin Hayden Christensen. And I've got to say, it was underwhelming. Like I said, the movie is much better than we expected it to be, given that it starred him. But yeah, his performance is, I'm going to say, shaky.
So I'm going to say this, and I'm going to preface this with two things. First off, I am not a fantasy guy. Out of every film genre...
This is medieval. This is not fantasy.
...that exists...
There was no magic.
Hold on.
Okay.
Out of every genre that exists, these kind of movies, the medieval and or fantasy...
Sure.
Whatever you want to classify it, these types of movies that take place in, pre-16th century, I'm just not about.
Okay.
Because I can't say 16th century has witchcraft, so...
Oh, I guess that's fair.
Witchcraft kind of allures me a little bit more.
Yeah, it's more interesting.
And but yeah, so this really sucks because so that's not why that was more the reason why I was dreading it than anything else.
Okay.
But I've seen Hayden Christensen do a couple different roles over the years.
I know Jumper was that one big one that I think people
Jumper
know
was
him
one
from.
that I've seen him in, and he was all right in Jumper. I think Jumper is the best he's ever been.
Okay, cool.
And I obviously revisited Star Wars prequels back when Episode 9 came out. We did an episode on it for Victims and Villains. And I've also seen a couple... he's played 2 journalists
Interesting.
in biopics, of all things.
Okay.
One of them is actually a man that comes to know the Lord.
Wow.
And they're both terribly acted.
That sucks. How are they written?
Terribly.
Oh, okay. So it could be...
So both.
Yeah.
But I'm convinced that Hayden Christensen could not act his way out of a paper bag.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so he's like the male Brie Larson. Got it.
Sure.
Let's be honest.
Sure. There's been a couple Brie Larson movies I've enjoyed, so
Okay.
I can't
Fair
say
enough.
that, I didn't like her. Unicorn Store is amazing. But no, so I think for here, I'm going to say that he's terrible in this role.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say that I have respect for him after I've learned these 2 facts.
Okay. So we're going trivia this early on.
There's 3 trivia facts.
Okay, fair enough.
on IMDb, and 2 of them are about Hayden, and one of them is about how China received this movie.
Okay. Go on.
They did not like the portrayal of the Asian characters in this movie.
Just any of them?
No.
Well, I mean, they all had English accents, so there is that.
Well, they didn't like the way that specifically the film portrayed the white savior character. So
That's fair.
there's that.
That's fair.
Which I'm curious. I've seen this coming into. We're recording this the week of his release for Prisoners of the Ghostland, which is the brand new Nicolas Cage movie.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it, and it kind of has some of those similar characteristics.
Interesting.
But it's actually directed by Sion Somo. I think I'm saying that name right. Who's actually making his English language debut in directing.
Cool.
So he's been doing Japanese movies since the 80s.
Wow.
So this is kind of his first foray, but we'll have an episode for you guys in like a week or so.
Really excited about it.
It's a fun time. That's all I'll say. You guys can read my review, my spoiler-free review on victimsandvillains.net/reviews. However, here we go. Hayden Christensen sprained his ankle not once, but twice during production.
That's insane.
And he kept going.
That's insane. A lot of people say, I've never sprained my ankle, but a lot of people say that spraining it can be worse than breaking. And I don't know why that is, but I've heard that.
Well, I mean, if it's broken, it's just broken. But if it's spraining, you still have the ability to reopen that wound essentially.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I guess it's fair.
And this is one that I'm I don't know if this is considered method acting or drunkenness disguised as method acting. But this is the IMDb legitimate fact is Christensen practiced his Scottish character's constant fainting by going on a week-long pub crawl in Glasgow. So he just got blackout drunk for a week straight.
That's not what it says, necessarily.
It is.
All right, fine. I figured it could just be culture immersion, but I guess he probably just did get drunk every day.
You want to start with the accents, since we're getting into this movie?
Okay, so that is the big thing. Okay, so Josh can tear Christensen's performance apart all he wants to. My only real big gripe is his accent, because I didn't know till just now that it was supposed to be Scottish. So there's problem 1. Problem 2 is that he never maintains any one good sense of
dialect.
Yeah, like dialect or vernacular the entire movie. There's times when I'm I was convinced the majority of the movie that he was supposed to be an Englishman. I mean, there's very much a crusade sort of setting, and that's just what I expected. But then there's a lot of times in the movie where I was that sounds like Scottish, and then there are other times rarer, but other times where I was like, that just sounds like straight up Irish. So that was probably my biggest problem with his performance overall. Is I was honestly low key impressed with some of his action sequences, but yeah, the fact that he just really warbled on the accent the entire movie was a disappointment.
So we can talk about the action sequences in just a little bit,
Sure.
because I think they're well choreographed.
Yeah.
And there are aspects of this movie. I want to say that there are aspects of this movie that I enjoyed.
Yeah, same.
That I thoroughly liked. I didn't come out of this movie dreading it as much as I thought I was going to.
Right.
But I kind of had like a higher. I'm trying to think about how to say it. Like, I'm still like right where I was expecting to be, just a little bit higher.
Okay,
if
fair
that
enough.
makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say that, like, yeah, that was really frustrating to me. Like, we've been saying this for a year and a half now. At Victims and Villains, is representation matters.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to get I should never, as a viewer, be able to tell that a American is playing a Scottish.
Yes.
Like,
facts.
Part of acting is the ability to fade into the character, to completely transform.
Although,
go ahead.
In Hunt for the Red October, Sean Connery, absolutely Scottish accent and all played a Russian. And I don't know. I love Sean Connery.
That's fair. I mean, there's going to be exceptions to every rule.
Exactly. Yes.
But that rule does not fade out here.
Yeah. Right.
Because Homeboy could just not keep it together.
Right, and that's the thing is, like, if you're supposed to be playing a Scottish person and you can't do a Scottish accent, and the best thing you can do is Irish, that sucks. But do it with commitment the whole time, and that was the problem. Is it was like there was just no commitment to anything. It was just not American.
Yeah, it's like to kind of pull from like another like franchise. Like, you go back and you watch the original X-Men trilogy, and the first one, Halle Berry's Storm, has that accent.
Yep.
And by the time that it gets to the second film, it's gone.
Yeah, true.
And it's really bothersome. And so I think that we've just kind of, as this like audience, like, we've grown to kind of accept the fact that, like, you're just not going to have them, and then you, like, actors can't typically do or keep that consistency. Mm-hmm. And then you get exceptions like Benedict Cumberbatch doing Dr. Stephen Strange.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But
anyway,
Hayden Christensen is not Benedict Cumberbatch.
A lot of people are not.
So there is that.
Yep.
And I think for the most part, like, it felt like Nicolas Cage was trying to do that accent, but him not being in the film, and so there's two different phases of Nicolas Cage in this movie. You have the we'll call it ghosts.
Sure.
You have a pre-ghost one where he's kind of fighting alongside of Christensen's character.
In like the beginning and the flashbacks.
In the beginning of the beginning of the flashbacks. And it's kind of like forgivable and kind of like overseeable, because like they're also like trying to like, they're running and like they're in the midst of battle and trying to catch their breath.
Yeah, yeah.
So everything like that.
They're yelling half the time.
Yelling, yeah. So you kind of like, okay, like, I can kind of forgive it. And then when we get reintroduced to him, he's a snake handler.
Yeah.
Which is
it's so rad.
Great.
Yeah.
We'll expand upon it in a little bit later, but then he's kind of like basically a pirate at that point.
Yeah, he feels a lot like a pirate, accent and all, missing eyeball and all.
But he commits to that.
He really does. He commits to it. And his accent is not amazing. I've heard Nick Cage do better accents. Probably most notably like Raising Arizona, actually.
Yeah.
But he stuck, like, the accent that he did was really on par with the character that he portrayed. And the character he portrayed was a blast. Super fun. It was one of those things that was just like, you didn't feel like you needed to take the character that seriously, but you also understood that he's been through a lot and this is where he's ended up, and it makes sense.
Yeah, so I think that with that said, I've kind of used this podcast as therapy to get all my feelings out about Hayden Christensen's acting in this movie. So if you'd like to, we can move on to another part of the film.
I think that we should. Although, like I said, I was fairly impressed at times with his action sequences. I feel like there are a lot of actors who, when you do action sequences, they do kind of like really jumpy, stunted, cinematography, so that you don't have to see how slow they're moving and how they have to shoot the choreography. But like, he really, all of his falls, he seriously, it seemed like he committed to. You could almost definitely tell that he did not have a stunt man. I was overall pretty impressed with at least that aspect.
Yeah, that's probably the only redeemable thing about his performance in this movie.
Yeah,
is the stunt work that he does, because with that stunt work, you also get that cool camera choreography as well. Mm-hmm. This film is just really well choreographed when it comes to the fight sequences.
Yeah, a lot of the cinematography is really, it's simple but beautiful and well executed. A lot of the scenes are really immersive and really just look really good. You can see they go kind of from the Middle East to, they're like, we're gonna go east, okay, and so they're traveling toward Asia, and so you get just really a vast array of scenery that's really pretty and really well shot. And there's a couple really creative sequences. Probably the most notable, Hayden Christensen's character, his name is Jacob, dumps a bucket of water over his face to like clean himself, and you see him about to do it, and the camera pans to, like, it looks like the camera's from the inside the bucket of water, and it's a really cool freaking shot.
Yeah, there's a couple cool shots that are really awesome like that. I think there's another scene where they go down into water too. I think there's a scene in particular where Jacob pulls a bow and arrow and hits the guy, and the soldier goes down in the water, and you actually kind of get immersed into the water for a very brief second as well.
Yeah.
The camera angles in this are really, really awesome.
Yeah.
From like some parts, and then there are other parts that I just don't understand why.
Yeah.
So like there's two sequences in particular where Jacob and the prince and the princess that he's trying to get back to the kingdom. I guess we should probably talk about what this movie's about real quick.
Yeah, I mean, it's not super strict, but yeah.
So, like we said, Christensen plays Jacob, and he is basically trying to get a prince and a princess back to their kingdom.
Well, okay, first of all, Jacob was a part of the Crusades, okay, as was Nicolas Cage, who was like his mentor. If you've ever seen Season of the Witch, we haven't done that yet on this podcast. We will, but it is another Nick Cage movie, and in that movie, Nick Cage is trying to basically like redeem himself from the sins that he committed, slaughtering people throughout the Crusades. This movie is actually the same. It's just Hayden Christensen's character is doing that, and so he kind of takes this banished young will-be king and his sister under his wing, because he, in an attempt to like atone for his sins, is basically what it is.
Yeah, I think you were paying a little bit more attention than I was. And I was the one taking notes.
That's why I don't take notes, because then I can't pay attention.
But there's a sequence in particular where they get into very close into the kingdom. They partner up with like a
caravan.
Mm-hmm. Gets them in, and the princess, or like, was it a princess? Because they never, I feel like they never.
The lady in the caravan.
Yeah,
they never say. It's just like,
okay. So like, so someone like higher up, basically treats them to dinner
and lodging.
But the sequences, that one in particular, the camera just goes like right for no reason. Like, did you catch that?
Yeah.
It's very nauseating.
Yeah, it's weird.
And there's another sequence too where
it's kind of like it's a camera angle that you would expect on a ship.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Not on dinner. And they do it again like later in the movie for a conversation between the would-be king's older brother and his guardsmen. Like, it's just very baffling, some of the camera decisions that they make. And from a technical angle. Yeah. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. So, like, you go on, basically what happens is this dying Asian king makes his younger son, rather than his older son who would have the birthright to be king. He gives him this seal that essentially grants him the ability to become king. And he sends him off, he and his sister. And then his older brother, who's like a warrior, comes in, has a conversation with his dad, the king, kills him, and then blames it on his little brother. And so that's kind of that's the entire plot of the movie, is that his little brother is now running from what they call the Black Guards, because they're out to find him because he, according to his older brother, killed their dad, killed the king. And that's kind of where Hayden Christensen comes in and saves him.
Yeah, so I guess now that we're like podcasting about it, we can kind of talk about it. Is how did you kind of feel about the forced? At least I felt it was forced, but like the whole like love, like relationship, like love interest of Christensen and the princess.
I mean, it was unnecessary, and the way the movie ends is, in regards to that especially, it's dumb. If I'm being just honest, it's dumb. But at the same time, like, I don't know, because I feel like a lot of times in stories like this, you expect there to be a love interest, and I think if nothing else, they wanted it there because like it rounds out aspects of a medieval story.
Yeah,
it's a trope.
That's how I felt. Like, it's a trope that I feel like this film could have done without.
Yeah, especially since they did nothing with it. Very little.
No, like they share a kiss, and there's a point in the movie where you had turned to me and you were like, "Oh, it's about to come," like they're getting ready to like get all hot and heavy and like embrace this trope, and it's like, no, they have like they share a couple words and a kiss, and it's the next scene.
Yep.
Like, this movie just feels like it just doesn't commit to anything.
Yeah.
Except for, like, I can't even say, like, it. I feel like Cage is really the only one that commits.
Yeah. And honestly, like, it's so easy for him to commit to his character because his character dies way, like, like 30 minutes before the end, if that, honestly. But
no, it was like 10 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, like you expect it to end in, oh yeah, the little prince becomes king and they get to where they need to get and blah, blah, blah. And all that's true. But other than that, even the plot, there's not like a ton of strict commitment to what's happening. Like they never explain like, all right, there's this Black Guard and they're chasing them. They never explain how they know where to go.
That's something I didn't even pick up on.
They never explain that. I mean, I guess it makes sense because they have to take that seal to a certain city.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. But other than that, it's like Hayden Christensen's character is even like, let's go through the woods. We need to get off the map. And it's like, yo, that's a good call. That makes sense. And it doesn't work at all.
No.
And that's never explained. It's just a complete plot hole. And he is basically saved on the other side of this river by Nick Cage's character, and he basically tells the kids where they can find, I guess, help? I don't know. They tell him to go to, like, some hills. And so Nicolas Cage's character, like, finds him, saves him, and is kind of reluctant about it. But, yeah. And then all of a sudden, all these Black Guards come to the cave. And it's like, I guess they knew that they crossed the river, But then how do they know to go to this cave? It just doesn't make sense.
2 words for you.
Okay.
Plot, convenience.
Yes, but like there is definitely a difference between well-written plot convenience and poorly written plot convenience. And this was not well written.
I honestly think that they were. So this story feels really formulaic.
Yeah.
Like the first hour of this movie where it's just Christensen.
Yeah.
And these kids, it feels just like it was lifted. It was a story lifted from a storybook that we've heard 1,000 times before.
It does. That actually, I know that you're not much for fantasy and medieval stuff, and I do like fantasy and medieval stuff, but I have to say, if there's anything wrong with that genre, it's what you just said. It's that so many of these stories are repetitive. They're told the same way over and over again. They have built-in tropes, and even when they're well written, as long as you've read Lord of the Rings, you're good. You don't need to read the rest,
Yeah, and I feel like it just feels so generic to that point. And once Jacob gets saved from Cage, that's kind of when I feel like the story kind of breaks ground. And it doesn't feel so formulaic because Cage is almost kind of like the equivalent of a jester character. He's just very much out there, but he's also this monk character that just wants to be at peace with his demons, his wine, and his wife.
Yep.
That's all he wants.
Yeah, he really just wants, and there's a legend built around him, and you can tell that he likes it that way because it means he can do whatever he wants to, and people are scared of him, and he's got this wife, and she got her tongue cut out, and it's all just what? This is wild. But it's some really interesting writing, and it's really fun.
As we mentioned, he doesn't have an eye.
He doesn't have an eye.
And he's a snake handler.
Yeah, which is only for one scene and explains nothing and is explained by nothing.
We did not need any explanation for that. The scene where he's talking to the kids and they make him that deal and he just brings the snake up to his chin. It's he's pondering it. I was this is the best scene in the whole movie.
It's incredible, but it's oh, okay.
See what you did there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think Cage brings up some really interesting points about mental health. Is you can kind of see how, and this is kind of also our introduction to Jacob in present day, where the majority of this film takes place.
Yeah,
is both of them have gone on to the events of the prologue, and now have silenced their ghosts or have kind of come to terms with their own demons.
Yeah.
So to say, Jacob goes the route of opioids and...
Oh, that's true. That was the one thing that was another thing I had something positive to say about is it's not common that you see drugs in this kind of story. You might see some drunkenness, but the fact that they made drugs such a part of it was really unique.
Yeah, and they use that I feel like is really well executed.
Yeah.
And also Nicolas Cage, has this drinking problem because they're essentially trying to cope with the mistakes that they've made in the past that they've made.
Yeah.
And there are scenes that I think this film does really well about whenever Jacob does sober up, he has those flashbacks.
Yep.
Back to kind of the monastery where we ultimately kind of see these child and women sacrifices that they walk into / also did. I don't know.
No, so what happens is they were crusades, so they were attacking somewhere in the Middle East, and there was this room full of women and children, and Cage's character finds this kid that he mentored, which is Jacob, Hayden Christensen's character, amongst them, and it's he thinks that because of what he sees that Jacob, the Jacob character, has slaughtered these women and children, just the younglings all over again. But actually what happened, and they never talked about it because he just abandons him, but they talk about it later on in the movie in the cave, is what happens is the women kill the children and then kill themselves. And so yeah, it's weird. It's one of those things where it's like the Jacob character is like grief stricken because of this moment, but also like burdened with his sins from just slaughtering people in the Crusades. And then his mentor, Cage's character is just, you never really get his name. It's like they say it a couple times, and I don't know what it is.
It starts with a G.
It does, and I don't know what it is. But he like is disappointed in this kid and just like abandons him because he feels like he's like just this murderous lost cause.
Which I feel like their relationship is really interesting to kind of unpack and deconstruct because
it's mirrored with the prince.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that also that when we're talking about, going back to kind of finding healthy ways to cope with, past regrets and past mistakes, because, I think that anyone listening to this right now, and I think even both of us, like, we have done stuff in our life that we're not proud of.
Absolutely.
And we've also had to go through a period where there has been regret that has sunk in, and there has been forgiveness that was a necessary conversation to have in order to either salvage a relationship or to grow past it,
right?
And make that foundation stronger. It's really interesting to kind of see how misplaced both of them are, and kind of once they're able to confront one another again, how that is reconciled ultimately by just the act of conversation.
Yeah, they just talk it out, and they just, which they never did. They parted ways, and they kind of knew where the other one was going, kind of, and that was it, because, one was basically just abandoned by the other because of this giant misunderstanding, and that's all it took was a conversation, and then also I think there's a lot to be said, too, of the Prince character, because, well, not necessarily his character himself, although he is a great character, but how, Cage's character and Jacob Christensen's character, how they just stand up for this kid, and they just put their lives in a position where they are defending this prince, because really, they don't have a lot left to live for, and they're still trying to atone for their own mistakes. And, Christensen, I will say, poorly delivered or not, Christensen has some decent lines. And one of them is the older brother, the prince's older brother, finally shows up with his army. And Christensen's he looks at him, he's like, the world doesn't need men like us. And his whole point of protecting this boy is because the boy is a peacemaker. He doesn't want war and bloodshed. He wants to govern well. And there's just there's this really a great sense of I'm atoning for my mistakes. I know what my mistakes are, and my mistakes are, being this person that I've always been, and I'm gonna use my very life to stop the people that have been just like me, because the world doesn't need this.
If you or someone you know is listening to this podcast right now and you're struggling with suicide, addiction, self-harm, or depression, we encourage you guys to please reach out. This is the heartbeat of why we do what we do. Suicide is currently the 10th leading cause of death in the United States, and as of this recording, there are 132 suicides that take place each and every day on American soil. And when you scale back internationally, there are 800,000 successful suicides. That is one death roughly every 40 seconds. So if you or someone you know is struggling, you guys can go to victimsandvillains.net/hope. That resource is going to be right in the description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this. There you'll find resources that include the National Suicide Lifeline, which is 1-800-273-8255. You can also text HELP to 741-741. We also have a plethora of other resources, including churches, getting connected with counselors, LGBT resources like the Trevor Project, and also veteran hotline as well. Please, if you hear nothing else in the show, understand that you listening to this right now, have value and worth. We get it. Suicide, depression, mental health, these are hard topics, and the stigma around them doesn't make it any easier. But please consider the resources right in the descriptions below, wherever you guys are listening, because, once again, you have value and you have worth. So please, stay with us. Yeah, and to kind of bring in something that we'll bring in on occasion, in the Bible.
Yeah, absolutely.
We also see that with is it Prince David or Prince
David?
Solomon? That
King Solomon,
one of the two kings. I can't remember which one. It's been a long day.
Sure.
But God basically comes to him and he's like, "Hey, I'll give me anything you want." Solomon, yeah.
Yeah, Solomon's like, God's like, I'll give you anything you want. And what Solomon asks for is wisdom. Mm-hmm. And God respects him so much for not asking for, money or power or a kingdom, that he gives those to him anyway.
Yeah.
Along with wisdom.
And it takes it, and look, from two guys, I think it takes a lot to be vulnerable and to say that you need help.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of one of the things that is interesting about the Christensen's character arc throughout the role, is not only is he looking for that atonement, but he's kind of made peace with the fact that, to your point earlier, that the world isn't looking for men like him. The world is necessarily looking for people that are going to truly change.
Yeah.
And be bold enough to kind of have those conversations and make changes necessary to bring it forth.
Right. And defend, he just sees such this value in defending the people who are willing to make the right choices, the better choices, to not be the man that he's been. Because the Crusades were a horrible, terrible mistake in the name of God.
Yeah.
And I honestly am kind of thankful for stories like this one that really identify them as that, because that's what they were,
Yeah, I think that the opening prologue to this, I think some of Cage's lines really convey that point, and it's really well delivered. It's a kind of pull from another notable franchise, the first Thor movie.
Okay.
I think does a really good job at kind of also conveying that, where Thor is just kind of this very young and very naive, prince that really wants to make his father proud, and so he thinks that the only way to make his father proud is bloodshed, and to kind of have all the 9 realms kind of basically at your beckon and afraid of you, truly terrified.
Yeah.
And Odin basically has to come to him and says, a true king knows when to govern and when to create bloodshed, basically.
Yeah, and even it's funny you brought that up, because I thought of was it a first Avengers movie where Loki's in Germany, he makes all those people kneel, and he's like, "Isn't this better? Isn't this what you want? Isn't this more your natural state, to bow in submission, to serve a king, a ruler?" And there's this one guy who stands up and he goes, "Not to men like you." And it's just ooh, it still gets me, because it's just, it's so important that if you're going to be in a position where you are a king or some sort of authority, especially if you're taking that upon yourself, then that has to come with wisdom. That has to come with temperance. You have to know that man, I can't just dominate people. I can't, because then it does become bloodshed.
I think even to kind of westernize that concept, because so much of our audience is in the U.S. So I want to just kind of look at it through what makes a good leader. A good leader, can be anyone from managing the McDonald's or Target down the street to someone that is, overseeing a BMW.
Yeah, a Fortune 500 company.
Yeah, and I think that, really what makes a true leader is someone that is able to identify when it's right to basically, be a dick,
Yeah, reprimand.
Yeah. And also at the same time to, be humble enough to, admit your own weaknesses and be vulnerable enough to kind of, hang out with your people.
Yeah.
And be humble.
Yeah.
I think is truly what good leadership comes from, and discernment and wisdom as well.
Yeah, I think honestly, like one of the best characters is the king in the beginning, who just dies and you don't get a lot of lines out of him. But you can really see that a lot of the reason that he wants to make, or you can kind of guess, conjecture, that a lot of the reason he wants to make his youngest son king is because his youngest son doesn't think that he should be. Because it's one of those things where it's like the fact that you don't think you should be king is what makes you ready to be king. Because you're not after power, you're not after fame or attention or authority. What you want is, what you want is good. Good as a concept.
Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree. I think too, like the people that you feel like sometimes like don't want to be leaders are probably the people that need to be leaders most.
Exactly.
Because they've gone through they've experienced bad leadership, and they've kind of experienced the brokenness that comes with that and the fallout of it as well.
Yeah.
And I think, sometimes for even my own life, like the times that I've kind of been in positions of authority or management at jobs that I've held over the years that I didn't necessarily want, but I knew necessarily that I also didn't want someone else to step into that role and kind of mess it up.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, like
I knew that you were responsible.
Yeah, enough. I know that I'm responsible, and I know, and there's someone that is promoting me as seeing that same value that I don't typically see myself in enough to say, we want to place you here in this office.
Yeah. Yeah. I think too, just in talking about leadership itself, it's important to note too that a lot of times leadership is just influence. It's not position.
Yeah.
I've been offered a promotion a couple times at my job, and I honestly refuse to take it for a couple reasons. But a lot of what I've been really thinking about recently is the fact that a lot of the kids that I work with, they come to me for, Micah, what do you need me to do? What should I do? What do we do? And it's look, I don't need a pay raise or a different shirt color or anything like that to know that I have influence and I can make a difference and I can make an impact positively. And sometimes, at least in my opinion, being placed in a formal position of leadership means that you kind of lose that. Yeah. Because people now see you as oh, he's the manager, he's the leader, he's supposed to be this way, et cetera, instead of respecting you for just your knowledge and your skill level and your willingness to just keep your head down and be diligent.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. And I think too, you get those you get a lot more of those conversations that are more meaningful.
Yeah.
Too, because someone's not being oh, I can't talk to this person. They're not gonna friend man and I've had several people that are terrified to come to me, and I'm just I don't try to be a harsh guy when it comes to management, but at the end of the day, I'm getting paid to do a job, so
sure.
I have to do a job because it's providing for my family. But there are even times where in doing victims that, I feel some people just look for me as kind of or are afraid to kind of be vulnerable. Sometimes at least it feels that way. But if I misinterpreted this and you're listening to this, please just hit me up. But I think at the end of the day, I think a good leader is someone that cares about the people that are coming alongside of them to make the vision count.
Right.
And I think that, we might not have 10,000 listeners every week, and we might not ever hit 1 million subscribers or whatever, But I want to use you mentioned influence. Like I want to use the influence that we have, whether it's talking about Nicolas Cage movies or horror movies or anime or video games or whatever to make a difference and just remind someone that they have value and that they have worth.
Yeah, and they have potential.
Yeah.
You know, and like you might not think of like whether it's in a job situation or a family situation or whatever, like you might think that you have things that you need to atone for, things that disqualify you from something, but like you're not the one who decides that you don't decide for someone else that you matter to them or that they look up to you or anything like that. You know, like if you're around other people, then you are an influence. And that may sound daunting, but that gives you value. That makes you important, you know? And I think something that I've really learned is to be intentional about that, not to lord it over anybody, but to just be like, oh man, like I'm in this position because I'm just surrounded by people that I can influence them. So how am I influencing them, positively, and how do I want them to see me and my position?
Also, to that point, I feel like anyone that, whether you could even be like a brother or a sister or
Right.
like someone cousin, but there's always going to be someone younger than you watching what you're doing.
Right.
And learning from that experience as well. Like being an adult, like you never realize how much the environments that you're around really shape the ideas and mental health habits and it's really how you see yourself until you kind of escape from that. And I think that, there were some really positive traits that I took from growing up where I did, and there were also some negative things that
Sure.
I really had to kind of face my own ghosts.
Right.
And kind of confront them head on with, how do I grow and be a better person from this?
Right. So
Let's talk about the fight choreography.
we already did that.
You want to talk about it? Okay. What do you want to talk about then?
Well, I guess we should talk about the ending because it sucked. I
Yeah.
feel like they tried really hard to have like some imagery, but it sucked.
Yeah, this movie was really terrible. Like,
Okay, it was better than we thought it was going
better
to
than
be.
we thought,
And
but
Nick's Cage character was worth it and a lot of fun.
yes, but Nicolas Cage's character is in this movie for like
20 minutes.
40 minutes.
Yeah, it's probably 40. Yeah.
And then you spend 5 minutes in the credits, and that's 55 minutes that you're spending with Hayden Christensen.
Yeah, and these two Asian kids.
And like for me, like I don't know, man. Like it has some cool moments.
Yeah.
But the ending in particular
Yes.
is
It's dissatisfying.
it's very dissatisfying.
It's very because you kind of just see like the boy goes to where he needs to go. And so up before that, there's like a couple minutes before that where like you see them by these graves, and it's like the two kids and Hayden Christensen character, and they're by these graves, and he carries the same sword around him through the whole movie. They really make a big deal about this sword. There's a couple of cool things they do with the choreography and the cinematography around this sword, so you really notice it.
But they never explain it.
They never explain that. First of all, the sword seems to have like no value. He just like his first fight scene after
Sentimental is value to some
I
people.
mean, I guess, but it's not like they never give it a sentimental value either. It just is his sword. So anyway, so you see them standing by these graves, and there are these like piles of rock, and you could tell they're graves, and there's like swords placed at the end of each grave. And the last one, it's his sword, but he's not dead. And so there's this theme of like the white ghost, I believe it is, that they call that's like the legend of Nick Cage's character after the Crusades, is he's known as the white ghost, and he's this criminal, and etc. And so you get kind of the vibe that like what the Jacob character is trying to do is like what he's trying to do is basically just end his life as he's known it and walk away from it. And that is a pretty decent sentiment, and it's some pretty decent imagery. But then what happens is that the kids go toward like this army and they bow, and the kid, you assume the kid is just king at that point. They never show any coronation or anything like that at all. Mm-hmm. And then the Jacob character walks away, and that's it. There's no culmination of the romance thing that they've been playing with.
Plots are just like lines are just like picked up and dropped.
They're
at
just
convenience.
Dropped. Yeah.
How would you guys like to help us get mental health resources into schools, conventions, and other events? Well, now you can. Simply go to patreon.com/victims and villains for as little as $1 a month. You guys can help us get mental health resources into current and upcoming generations, educate and break down stigma surrounding mental health, suicide, and depression. And you get exclusive content that you can't get anywhere else. And you guys can tell us which Nicolas Cage movie you want us to cover, and we'll do it. All it takes to get started is to go to patreon.com/victims and villains, or simply click the link in the episode description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this episode. Pick your tier and get started today. Yes, it's that simple. So quickly select the tier that you want and help us get hope into the hands of the depressed and the suicidal today. I think would have made the ending better had they kind of taken like the Logan approach, to where you just had kind of like Jacob did die.
Yeah.
And like these two kids are like stricken with that death.
Yeah.
Like it would have made the movie so much more impactful.
Yeah.
Instead of like, oh no, he fakes his death to kind of start a new life. And I'm like,
But that's
why?
That's kind of my thing. Like faking his death or whatever is fine. That doesn't bother me because there's some like symbolism to it. But if you're gonna start a new life, why walk away from the kids that have kind of helped you find that? That's dumb.
That's a valid point. But also, I don't think that you needed that 3 days later thing.
Oh, that either. That was dumb.
Like you could have literally just had the ending. Right at the feet of the black what are they called, blackguards?
Yeah.
You could have just, after like he dies, like you could have just had it right there.
Yep. Totally.
Like, there's no reason to be like, oh yeah,
3 days later.
Like no, that's so dumb.
Unless they're really trying to like drive home some of the more like I guess like God aspects.
I think you're just reaching now.
I think so too, but there is one scene where the Jacob character is praying, and there there is the whole like, well, they're a part of like, we do this for God, like that's at the beginning of the movie. That's really heavy in the narrative, as are a lot of Crusade movies. That's a big thing. But yeah, I'm probably reaching, and if that's what they were doing, they were probably reaching.
So.
Yeah.
Also, the thing that I want to say particularly about this movie is that I feel like it tries really hard to be this kind of like really, the cinematography in this really rich. Like whoever they got to do like the cinematography in it just did a really great job.
Even the location scout.
Yes, the locations are gorgeous. Like this is a pretty gnarly looking movie.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
But I feel like they really tried to bring that kind of artistic approach into the narrative, and it just didn't quite work because you had like plot holes, you had like character decisions and character motivations that just seemed to drop at a whim.
Yeah.
And like my thing that I wrote in my notes was the fact that it seems like Hayden Christensen's superpower in this is the ability to go from effed up to sober in less than 3 seconds.
Yes.
And it's just this it's just a mess, honestly, and I feel like the thing that really capitalizes on that mess is the way this film ends.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very true. I think that like you're right as far as like the movie is artistic in its cinematography, and they probably try to wrap that into some of the dialogue and some of the plot. Have you ever seen? I don't know how much of like a martial arts guy you are, but like earlier 2000s movies like Hero. Hero is the one that comes to mind. Crouching Tiger is probably the biggest one. A lot of like early 2000s Jet Li kind of things. Have you seen any of those?
Seen Hero, I think,
Okay.
but I haven't seen Crouching Tiger.
Sure. Hero is the main one I was thinking of. A lot of those movies are very like, they're beautiful. Their color palettes are beautiful. They're shot beautifully. And they're not movies with a ton of dialogue. And so it's very much this, you get this idea that like this is supposed to be kind of an art piece with a lot of violence in it. And they're really well done and really, and they do not feel American. They don't. And just the way they tell a story is really kind of amazing. And I feel like this movie was, maybe a poor attempt at that.
Yeah.
Of just trying to allow certain loose ideas of symbolism to convey points that were just not there.
That symbolism could have been so much more effective had some of the other plot points that just didn't necessarily need to be there been tightened up.
Yeah.
Like you didn't need some of the tropes. You didn't need
the love story.
Yeah. You didn't need like some of the stuff that you have with bring Nicolas Cage in a little bit earlier. Like
right. Yeah.
Like just kind of like try to balance your stories and your characters a little bit more. Like. To me, like I applaud and I really appreciate the whole like drug use in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think it brings and makes this character really three-dimensional.
Yep.
But at the same time, I feel like that was kind of like overexplored, where I would have preferred that to kind of been like they could have tightened it a little bit.
Yeah, you felt like they fall back on it later on when they don't need to. Yes.
Yeah, and it's just like. And it's really dumb things too that they like reasons why they fall back on it.
Yeah.
But they do. So I think that's going to bring it to a close.
Sure.
Is Outcast worthy of high praise?
It's just not. If you watch this movie, don't do that. Go on YouTube and like just go watch Nicolas Cage's parts because they're hilarious and wonderful, and his character is just really, really fun. And it's a blast. But as a film, no, it's some good things, and I always try to like be positive in general. When things really do kind of look down, but no, it's not. It does not deserve high praise.
Boy, I'm so glad we are on the same page.
Yeah,
I kind of had a feeling this was going to be not worthy of high praise.
Yeah, worthy of low praise.
I won't say it's worthy of low praise. It's like kind of like between like low and like low medium.
Yeah, there you go.
Because like there are a lot of cool things that this film does do.
Mm-hmm.
But they're just not enough to last. Like to your point about like Nicolas Cage and like the YouTube, like there's probably like a 10-minute YouTube like clip show that you could create that would make this movie so much better.
Yeah. Just in Nicolas Cage's stuff. Yeah.
I would say some of the camera angles are cool.
That's
like
true.
The water.
That's true.
Water shots in particular are really great.
I'm curious as to. Not curious enough to watch it, but I'm curious about the trailer and how they like edited that together and how they tried to sell this movie. Because they had a lot to work with, but then that's the downfall of trailers, is that if you put too much into it, then you build up something that's not there.
All right, so should we do a trailer reaction after this?
I don't want
to. Fair enough. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for us on this episode. We're going to be back in just a couple days talking about Teen Titans Go to the Movies.
That's right.
This is going to actually be a live show for you guys.
Yep.
So pretty excited about that.
Yep.
But until then, where can people find you online?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Mullet Stash, also at V.H.Zest. Still need to do more with that account. I'm sorry. And you can, Josh is going to bring up his fake social media.
It's not fake.
So you can find me on Discogs. My handle there is just Damian Wayne. And there's this brand new social media that is, it's literally like launched this week. It's called Pivot, Pivott. And I don't know if it's going to go anywhere, but I have one of those for some reason. So that's at Mullet Stash. I guess you could like add me on Snapchat. That's at mullet.stash.
So let me get this straight. So your wife is one of the biggest Friends fans that I know.
My wife?
Your wife.
Okay.
And you joined a social media site called Pivot.
Yeah.
And did not make a Friends reference.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
You guys can find me on Instagram. I am at Captain Nostalgia, as well as Letterboxd at Captain Nostalgia. And you guys can find me on Snapchat at Ghostface. And you guys can follow our parent company, Victims and Villains, at Victims and Villains on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. Or go to victimsandvillains.net, where you guys can find all of those social media links, find out how to support us on Patreon, and also go to get more podcasts like this one. And you guys can also find movie reviews and, most importantly, our mental health resource. So, library, until next time, remember to keep on caging.